Made from the mud, there's dirt on my hands. Strong like a tree, there's roots where I stand. Oh, I've been running from the law.
You know, fizzy.
Hope they won't shoot me down soon.
So I guess we'll get started. Maybe get an introduction from yourself, your name, your weight class, your best lifts.
Yeah. So my name's Kyle Dosterschill. I've competed as a 94 kilo lifter, but I guess now I'd technically be a 96. I weigh about 97, 98 kilos. My best lifts are 160 kilo snatch and 195 kilo clean and jerk. I've been training my whole life, but weightlifting really specifically for the past like 9 years, 10 years almost. It's been a long time, yeah.
So like, what kind of got you started into weightlifting? Because you've got like a history of other sports that you've obviously competed in.
Yeah.
If you can walk us through how that journey kind of got you into this.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's a long one. So as a kid, I played like youth sports, and my stepdad was like my football coach as a youngster, and the age limit to work out at the YMCA in my hometown was 14 years old, but at 12 years old you could go and like use the equipment as long as you were accompanied by an adult. And so my stepdad would go every night, and he would bring me and just started introducing me to like the basic lifts, and I just fell in love with it like immediately. And there was no snatching or clean and jerk. It was just like bench press, pull-ups, very basic stuff, squats. But I think the attraction for me was the immediate return, not necessarily immediate, but the return you would get from the work you put in. And even as a kid, I was 12, 13 years old, and I recognized it, and it just like fueled the fire that was started the first time I went. And so the more I went, the more return, and it's like an addiction. Yeah. So I started as a kid, and I trained for youth sports, and then into high school, and decided I wanted to play college football. So I guess hit it a little harder then, and earned a scholarship, moved to St. Louis. And then in St. Louis, there was a weightlifting team at the school that I went to, Lindenwood University, and they were a good team. They had a couple Olympians, the coach, Derek Johnson, who's highly recognized, Jeff Whitmer, who's one of the best American weightlifters of all time, best friend, Fernando Hayes from Brazil. They were like Laurent from Canada, actually. There were a ton of people, and it was like a gold mine. And I saw it. I didn't really know what it was at first, but I saw these guys, going overhead with 300, 400 pounds, and I just became so interested in it immediately. And I slowly lost some interest in football. I switched positions. I went from playing just linebacker to playing H-back or running back and linebacker, and it wasn't a good move. I didn't enjoy it as much. So losing interest in football at the same time of like becoming interested in Olympic weightlifting, and one day it kind of hit me where it's like, that's what I want to do. So I talked to the Olympian in class. I had him in an American history class, and he needed help with his American history homework because he was from Brazil. And I helped him a little bit, and then he taught me weightlifting, and became best friends. And I mean, really since then, it's just been my entire life. I haven't stopped. Every day, despite injuries. And in a sense, it's like the years leading up to that, from when I was a kid, I didn't know I was gonna do Olympic weightlifting, but training for all these years, I knew I wasn't gonna play in the NFL. So it kind of feels like, in a way, it is I don't really believe in fate or destiny, but in a way it kind of feels like that. So it's a good feeling. It really is, yeah.
It's actually kind of funny because that's actually one of the same reasons why I started. Like, I used to watch this guy actually at university do the snatch and clean and jerk, and like over time, you slowly lose interest in other things, and you're like, that looks hard. That looks fun. I want to do that.
Yeah.
Right. And it's kind of like that little bug that kind of bites on you.
Yeah. Yeah, I was. Go ahead.
Oh, I have a really similar story to you.
Yeah.
Like, maybe not as competitive, but yeah, like I started in football in high school, got introduced to the weightlifting movements pretty early on, and fell in love with those because it was just such a pure, straightforward but also complex movement.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
latched onto it.
No, and in high school is kind of a funny story. I just played football, and like most of the people I went to high school with played, baseball, and then they ran track, and so they were like year-round athletes. And I played football, and then I just lifted weights. I competed in powerlifting, and I just trained year-round basically. And it was on my own. It was a little town. It was 8,000 people. I didn't have a coach. My stepdad had introduced me to the barbell, but since I was 12, 13 years old, and I kind of outgrew that and started doing my own thing. And during basketball season, I would go in the weight room and work out by myself, and it was not the school didn't like it for obvious reasons, and but the football coach he did, and so he pulled some strings, and he got me, he allowed me to go in there. I had a key and had basically anytime access. And one day I was in there by myself, and I was doing cleans. I didn't know what snatches were, but I was doing hang cleans, and I was wearing straps. It was over 300 pounds. I think it was 335 pounds. And I caught the clean, and I fell backwards, but I was strapped in, so I couldn't do anything. And he walked in the door right before I did the lift, and so he saw the whole thing happen, and it's like slow motion. The bar, it didn't hit my face because of the plates, but it was pretty terrifying. So after that, I was a sophomore, and Olympic lifts were banned from the school. Yeah.
You weren't injured from that, were you?
No, I didn't get hurt at all. It just scared him. And then, in addition to that, I was in there by myself. So if I would have gotten hurt, it would have been pretty bad. But so I had no exposure to weightlifting at all. And so when I saw the guys at college doing the, snatch and the clean and jerk, I tried to teach myself. And I would go in the back corner. There's a big weight room, and I had a hoodie on. I'd have my hood up. I didn't want anybody to, see what I was doing. But they saw me in the corner, and so now they'll tell jokes about the crazy kid with the hoodie in the corner, spying on us and trying to do what we're doing. And then eventually I, joined them, and they properly showed me and taught me. And that was, for me, I was just so fortunate because from the beginning, I had these, incredible athletes to teach me the proper way to train and compete and progress and excel. And it's made a huge difference for sure.
So, we've kind of heard a little bit about your background and what's kind of brought you to this point. So why don't you tell us about this facility that we're in right now? So, what made you decide to open up your own gym?
Yeah, I don't know, as a kid, it was something I've always wanted to do. And I remember as a little kid, my dad telling me you can't make money doing that. What are you even talking about? He's like, you need to, if you want to be a coach, you need to be a university coach at a big Division I school. And I just had no interest in it. and so I knew I wanted to own my own facility and do private training. And I just didn't know really how to go about doing it. And I worked at multiple gyms in the past, 10 years. I was, again, really fortunate in St. Louis to work at the lab gym with a guy named Justin Thacker, who, just looking back on the time I spent with him taught me everything, just so much about how to run a gym, how to run a business, how to work hard, how to balance, training and work, although both of us are guilty of not doing that very well. But a few years ago, it was 3 years ago actually, almost exactly today, I was working at a gym in Dallas, and it just didn't feel right, and there was no room for growth. I felt trapped essentially, and the owner hired a consultant to come in and restructure the business, and the things that I believed in and the things that I wanted to do were exact opposite of everything he wanted to do. And that was kind of a pattern I had experienced at other gyms. And I think it got me into some trouble in the past as far as with the, the owner or the boss. And And so I realized like it's because I want to do my own thing, and didn't have any money. I was competing and like just working enough to kind of get by. I had just moved to Dallas, and I quit this gym, just like walked away, and it's like, all right, I'm gonna figure it out. Like I'll find somewhere to go. I was training a discus thrower who's an All-American. His name's Michael Hawkway, and he was like kind of my priority. So I needed to train, then I needed to train him. And so I went to like all the gyms in Dallas, just dropped by, talked to the owner, like looked at the facility, trying to figure out if it would work, and just trying to find something short-term to train him. And we found a gym downtown. It's called CrossFit Heat. It's in the farmer's market, and they had a basement that was unused. It was just like 1,000 square feet of vacant space, and it looked deserted. It was like there were like wrist straps hanging from the ceiling. It was full of dust, and like it was bad. It was so dirty. And I went downstairs and hit the lights. I was working out at this gym one day, and like, holy shit, this is it. And looking back at pictures, it's like I don't know what I saw, but I saw something and ran with it. I started weightlifting classes. Well, I talked to the owners and worked out a deal with them to like sublease the space, and I started classes the next day, formed the business the next day, and just worked really hard, figured I would at least, you know, it would lead to something. I didn't know what it was going to lead to. I didn't know it would lead here, but I knew it would end up opening doors to something else, and so I just kind of put my head down and kept going, and it went really well, and we built to about 50 clients, and we're just capped for space because it was 100 or 1,000 square feet, and we were there for 3 years. I looked for a building for like 2 years almost, way before I was ready. I'll like go through emails now and see some old conversations with my real estate agent, and I was like looking at these properties I had no business looking at, and there's no way I could have funded it or made it work. And I think we looked at like 25 different buildings. It took a long time. Finally found this, and again, like I walked in, it did not look like this. There were no windows. It was full of dust. None of this was here. I mean, it was bad. It was really bad, just beat up, and it was a cool building. And I walked in, and I just knew it immediately. I'm like, all right, this is it. And she's like, what do you mean? She's like, we've seen all these other buildings that are much better than this. I'm like, no, this is it for sure. And worked out the lease. Took a long time, but again, just kind of made it work. And we've been very fortunate, been very lucky. Maybe not luck, but we've definitely made it work, and I'm happy to be here for sure.
Yeah, it's well, I can see you've done a really great job with sprucing up the inside. It seems like quite the facility here.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask actually, Hunger in the Wild.
Yeah.
That's a really unique name for a club.
Yeah.
Maybe you can walk us through the inspiration behind that name.
Definitely. So I'm a younger brother. I have an older brother who's 4 years older than me, and I think, long story short, to kind of put words to his face or to who he is, he's good with words. He's really good with words. And as a kid, he would, when I was a baby, he would like read to me, and I got older, he would like write, I guess technically it's poetry, but he would write poems and things that I just would relate to. And I've always worked really hard, and I've had a fascination with wolves and like the wilderness. And one day he just asked me, he's like, what are you doing, man? Like, why do you work so fucking hard? He's like, what's the goal? And I was working out and wanted to earn a scholarship. And so I told him that. He's like, yeah, but is it really worth like all this time you're putting in? And he's like, you've multiple time All-State, and like you have all these recognitions, and like you're strong, like what else do you need? And I didn't really know. I didn't have an answer, and that kind of hit me, and I know it hit him. And he wrote a poem, and it really what it stands for, what it means is like the hunger in the wild is like an unstoppable force and force of nature that just drives no matter what. And it's like, for example, a wolf's appetite to survive or to eat, and it's like it will do whatever it takes to try to eat, even if it fails in the process, and dies while trying to kill a bear or bison or whatever. And it's the same kind of mentality that I've taken, and so it's just forever hungry with full belly. That's kind of what it means or what it stands for. And it's like, no matter how much success you have or you attain, there's always room for more growth. Yeah, so it means a lot. It's like almost hard not to tear up a little bit. It goes back a long time, and it's been a big part of my life even before he wrote that, before I really knew what it was. But it summarizes basically everything I stand for.
Yeah, and you can kind of feel that when you read the name. It's very different from a lot of other clubs and gyms.
Yeah.
They have.
Yeah.
So they're definitely, you can sense there's a story behind it.
Yeah.
You kind of guess what it means.
Yeah.
To hear your story about it, it's really, really cool.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it was whenever I wanted to start the business, or I didn't know, I was like, what am I gonna call this? Like, I have no idea. I was starting a gym it was underneath another gym, and it was just me and this one athlete, and I had no idea what I was really doing. And I knew I needed to form an LLC or a legal entity for obvious reasons, and I just didn't know what to call it. And so I spent a few days trying to think of something, and this just kept coming up. And my brother's like, just fucking do it. Like, just do it. It doesn't matter. Like, you can change it later if it, whatever, just do it. And so I did it, and Hunger in the Wild LLC, and people, at first, people were really skeptical. I say people, it was mainly like family members who were not maybe so excited about me leasing a space underneath another gym and trying to do what I've done. But they're like, people aren't gonna know what that means. Like, they're gonna think you're crazy. They're not gonna remember it. And in a way, it's like had the reverse effect, I think, because people become curious, and it sparks some sort of curiosity, and they either want to know and they try to figure it out, or they just remember it. And so it's definitely, I think, worked pretty well. Yeah.
Well, things are definitely what you make it, right?
Absolutely, that's true. That's what it comes down to. Yeah.
And I think you actually kind of led us into a good segue into our next question, which is like, as a gym owner, as a business owner, what are some unexpected challenges that you have faced trying to bring this to fruition?
Yeah, man, so many. It's unbelievable. And I know, before I started doing this, I had heard people, for example, Justin Thacker from St. Louis, spent a lot of time with him while I was there, and it were just always challenges, every day, and it was nonstop. And I'm thinking, bro, it's just a gym. Why is it so hard? I understand you have to pay rent, you have to, do all these other things, and you have people to, look out for, and you have to hold them accountable and all these things. But at the end of the day, still, why is it so difficult? And I don't think there's any way to know until you know, and the only way to know is by doing it. And if I had to, I guess, name a few of them, probably the biggest struggle that I've had, or the biggest challenge, has just been leadership. And I didn't really, going into this, or when I started the business, I really didn't think too much about it. I've always, in college and high school, I was a captain on the team, and I don't know, people have, seemed to like me a little in the past, and it's good person, I'll be able to lead, no problem. And it's not that easy. Having employees, and then having a lot of people, a community, and athletes, there's just a lot going on, and having I think it really is the discipline to hold yourself accountable, and in that space. And I've struggled a lot with it, and to make it even, I think, more difficult, is pretty hard on myself. And so it's leadership, I think, is something you definitely work at it, work to get better at, but at the same time, the only way to get better at it, I think, is by doing it. And it can be uncomfortable, and it's like stepping out of your comfort zone, and doing that is difficult. And so it's the essence of leading is is difficult, but then the things that you have to do to prepare yourself to be able to do that are even more difficult. And it's just it's a long spiral. And as far as business in general, like financing was so difficult for me. And everybody before I started a business or gym, like small business loans and funding and all these things. And it's like banks don't want to loan to a gym, especially not one that has only been open a couple of years. There were just all these like roadblocks and challenges that if you Google like how do I do this, none of it is discussed or displayed. And so like the clear path that I thought was gonna be my path was nowhere to be found. And it's just been, like one thing after another, and just like makeshifting or making things work that maybe shouldn't have worked out, but in a way just like forcing it to work. And I think that's just kind of approaching it and being relentless with whatever you're doing, whatever the end goal is or the destination is, like just keep walking, like just stay in that direction. And some things will go wrong, but at the same time a lot of other things will go right.
Yeah, it only ever stops when you quit, right?
Yeah, I think so. But even then, like demons, and it's like, I don't know. Stopping itself is scary. I don't know if I ever could stop at all. And I know the challenges in weightlifting or strength training in general have definitely prepared me for what I'm doing now. And I'm not talking about lifting weights, I'm talking about, actually running a business. And it's just I think the focus and like the discipline and the desire to just get better. It's like get better as a leader, get better at financials, get better at being just a business owner or a person. And like I'm a disciplined person in general. And I mean, as a kid in high school and even prior to high school, I'd get up and go work out at like 5 a.m. before school, and my parents are like, what's wrong with you? Like everybody else is sleeping. And it's never really been an issue. And for me, it's like discipline at night, the discipline I need at night to like put the computer down or just stop working and, spend time with my girlfriend or my dog, or, it's like, that's where I struggle with discipline. And so getting better in areas that are not necessarily related to the barbell, that's something I haven't worked at a whole lot in the past, maybe 10 years. And now that's something I really have to work hard at.
So I think that actually, it's interesting you say that, because I also struggle with that at the end of the day. After work, I get home, I start working, I get really wrapped up into what you're doing. Before you know it, you look at your phone and it's like midnight.
Yeah, man.
And
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm up at like 6.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very routine thing. And as of the past few months, I've had my schedule has largely been later in the day. And so I've been able to go to sleep later and then wake up a little bit later. But starting on Wednesday, my schedule will change and I'll start doing split shifts again. And so I'll be up at like 4 a.m. and then also coaching until late in the evening. And so it's going to be really important to put it away and like, actually get some rest or just some downtime in general. And it will, you check back with me in a couple months and we'll see how I'm doing then.
I'm sure it'll be fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
The last question relating to your business, your gym here, is what are your plans for taking it, into the future? Where do you see yourself, X number of years going into?
Yeah. Good question. I mean, with the gym, really, I don't really just think of it as a gym. I think of it on like a much broader scale. And I've really taken an interest to like doing online work, largely because of the outreach. It's much easier to reach a large number of people than, whenever you're physically here. But the really unique thing about having a gym is they like feed off of each other. And so focusing on, growing, let's say, the online business or growing the gym, naturally the other one will grow with it. And so for me, I want to continue to do this and really make this like a headquarters or a home. I plan to buy the building and stay here, but at the same time, like, continue to expand and grow our reach. And one of the things I would really like to do is to develop a team, an actual weightlifting team, and coach. And I think having both of those, the online and the physical presence or location, are essential to doing that. And so, as far as 5 years, that's really I think the vision, or like the direction I want to go. And I know it won't happen immediately. It'll take some time, but I have some time, so it's all good.
Talking about the future, why don't we go to the past now?
Yeah.
So knowing everything you know now, about that you've learned from your time in St. Louis, opening the gym, if you were to see yourself 10 years ago, knowing what you know now, what advice would you give yourself?
Man, probably to slow down, kind of, but it's like at the same time, I know, like, I struggle with patience, being patient in general, and I always have. But at the same time, like, if I would tell myself and like convince myself 10 years ago to slow down, then and if I would have slowed down, I definitely wouldn't be where I am. So maybe that's not what I would say, or maybe that's not the best thing I would say. I think really, like, if I were to go back and talk to myself or tell myself, give myself advice, it's just to work hard, and you have a good head and you have good direction and you have good people around you and you have good intentions, and you're basically absent of bad. Everything you want to do is essentially good. If you're working your ass off and like being relentless, then that good will spread and it will expand and it will open doors that lead to other good things. And so it's like the sense of urgency or the lack of patience, it can definitely be a downfall, but at the same time, it's absolutely something that you can take and use, and it will help you and empower you. So I don't know what I would say. I really don't. That's a good question. I'm going to think about it.
On top of what you were mentioning earlier with advice for yourself from 10 years ago, it'd be interesting to hear, like, what kind of advice would you have for an athlete who's looking to same thing, who has that sense of impatience or who wants to improve as fast as possible, make the most out of their time? What would you say to them?
I'd say to find people who have done what you want to do. And I say that a lot, and it's really something I firmly believe in, and I kind of fell into the hands of people that played that part for me, but without them, I wouldn't be here at all. I have no idea what I'd be doing. But I was, I think, aware enough to understand that and recognize it. And immediately I started going to training camps in Brazil, and I would drive to train at the lab gym with Justin Thacker in St. Louis from the school I was at. And it was like, I would commute a couple hours a day to train twice a day with this guy. And I saw all this like knowledge and I think like accomplishment, and I just wanted to be around it. And so I did whatever I possibly could to make that happen. And so I think as a kid, a lot of the time, young athletes they don't want to be they want to be the best. Like, everyone wants to be the best, of course, but it doesn't start that way. And so to be the best, you really need to like surround yourself with the best. And for most people, that's not an easy thing to do. I mean, you live in a little town, or you don't live in, I don't know, wherever the best weightlifters in the world are. You have to go there, and to go there is usually not easy. It requires money and time away and flexibility, all these different things. And there's no way around that. It's part of it. And when you really understand that, and you understand that like sacrifice is a necessary part of it, I think that's whenever things change. And so really finding a way to discuss that and like elaborate and make sure that it's understood, and understood to a point where like people will take action, that would really be, I think that would change somebody's life for sure. I know as a kid, if I would have understood that when I was younger, it would have done a lot for me. I mean, I'm glad that I know it now and I was around these people, but the kids that I've worked with in the past, and or even remember as a kid myself, that's just not something anybody ever told me. And so I just didn't know. And I think a lot of people who kind of are in this world, like, I can do it, like I'll do it myself, like get out of the way, let me do it. And it's like, that will, take you far in some situations, but it's not gonna take you all the way. Or, trying to do it on your own is not gonna get you there whenever this guy who's more talented than you and, stronger, and he's just better in general, is also working with a better coach who worked with a better coach, and so forth. And it's like, those are that's the key, is just understanding that and then seeking it out and doing whatever you have to do to make it happen.
So I think the last question that we have for you today is, when you have a new lifter who comes into your gym, what advice do you give them about the sport and about training?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I just had a guy who reached out from a few months ago, and he told me he was gonna be in Dallas for like 3 weeks, and said he was new to the sport but wanted to learn everything he could about it. And he's like, so what are we gonna do? I'll be there on this date. And he showed up, and he asked a few questions, and advice was, it's something I don't typically feel comfortable like just giving out to people unless they ask for it, and he asked for it. And so I definitely shared things, from previous experiences and things that I've learned. But I think that as a kid, or as a beginner starting out, it's scary. Like walking into a gym is scary. I mean, for me, going to another gym is always uncomfortable, and I think it always will be. It's like, they have their little cult or their group, and they don't want outsiders or whatever it is. And if I feel that way, I imagine most people probably do. And so it's like, forget about it. Like, you can't, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. You feel uncomfortable, that's fine. It's just part of it. So put that aside. And whenever you do that, you feel relaxed in a way. And when you're relaxed, you're able to like retain, and you see things that you wouldn't see if you were so uptight. And so I think it would be to relax and slow down. And I know slowing down is something I just described as maybe not being the thing to do. But when you're just starting out, it's crucial just to slow down, and like slow down your movement, go slower, like really learn how to do it, whether it's learning how to snatch or learning how to recover, or learning how to take criticism and like coaching. It's just trying to go too fast when you're starting out it will shut down your progress in the long run, for sure. And so back to the patience thing, I think in the weight room specifically, like as a beginner, the patience is crucial, for sure.
Do you have any last questions?
No, I think that covers everything.
Cool.
Thanks for your time. Really
Of course, yeah. Thank you guys. Definitely. Thank you.
When the
For sure.
sun rises.